A historic moment. The House is poised to impeach a president. I'm Adrienne Pedersen today on Upfront.
How you stand up to the Constitution is by voting no on both articles of impeachment.
The articles are what they are. They're very powerful. They're very strong.
Next, despite hours of public testimony and tense talk, Wisconsinites haven't changed their minds about impeachment. I'll ask Craig Gilbert of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel what the new poll numbers tell us. Plus, breaking news about Foxconn. The state says the company doesn't qualify for tax credits with the project it's currently building. Next, Administration Secretary Joel Brennan on what the state wants from Foxconn, and I'll ask WEDC CEO Missy Hughes about her talks with the company.
Taking on the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront with your host, Adrienne Pedersen.
Thank you for joining us. We begin today with new developments in the Foxconn story. The state is warning the company that it might withhold tax credits because Foxconn's project in Racine County has changed so much. As you know, the company is building a huge factory in Mount Pleasant. The Walker administration negotiated a deal that would give the company $3 billion in tax incentives if Foxconn hits marks for investment and job creation. But the Evers administration is telling Foxconn that its project is materially different than what the company said it would be. Administration Secretary Joel Brennan tells me the state wants more talks with Foxconn. As of today, if Foxconn applied for those tax credits, you're saying they would not get them?
They do not qualify for tax credits.
And what's the biggest issue? Why don't they?
Well, going back 2 years, Foxconn and the state of Wisconsin entered into agreements over a well-defined project, a certain manufacturing project, the Generation 10.5 plant. Everything that was done, all the applications, the memorandum of understanding, all of the evaluation, the contract, all of those things were specified for that project. And that project, as has been widely reported, has evolved significantly over the last 2 years. And there continue to be changes to it, which is okay, except that the contract as it's laid out and the incentive package is for that project. So as the project evolves, the state has encouraged Foxconn on any number of occasions in lots of ways to come back to the table to talk to us about how do we bring the current project into alignment with the contract.
But if they're not getting, they wouldn't get these tax credits now, what part of the deal does it seem like they're not holding up?
Well, very specifically, the justification for the incentive package as it was laid out, the justification was based on the size, the scope, the speed at which this project was going to happen, the location, the manufacturing focus, all of those things. And all of those things have changed and evolved over the last couple of years. And there's nothing wrong with that except that all of the contract language is specifically justified based on those things. So as those things evolve, the conversation about the contract has to evolve as well.
Looking through the correspondence that we have now, it looks like this relationship might be a little tense. I mean, you have a Foxconn executive saying that he's not sure if the governor welcomes doing business in the state. So how can you say that it's a good relationship when you're hearing something like that?
Well, there are ongoing conversations and dialogue that go beyond just what the words are on a page. And so there continues to be that kind of dialogue that happens on a weekly, sometimes a daily basis with Foxconn. And I think the thing that we can have disagreement on aspects of this, but I guess the thing that we've tried to make plain to Foxconn, and we'd encourage them, is that it's in their best interest to make sure that the project that they have now and the flexibility that they seek is something that can be attached to the language in the particulars of getting incentives from the state, because it's important for them and the way that this project is going to evolve over the next several years that those two things be in alignment.
How confident are you that at the end of the day, this Foxconn project will go through, they'll do what they promised, and they'll get the tax credits?
Well, I'm confident that the state has articulated and the Evers administration has laid out for Foxconn what the path is to ensure that they can have the best chance for success. so that they can connect up very specifically the work that's going on now with the incentive that the state can provide for that. And I think the more that we can bring those things into alignment, the better the chance for long-term success with Foxconn.
Foxconn issued a statement Friday. The company says that it's in discussions with the state and it will continue to work with the state in good faith. Foxconn says it's hopeful that they'll arrive at a mutually acceptable resolution so that it can continue with its project. Governor Evers has a new chief at the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. I recently sat down with the new CEO, Missy Hughes, to get her take on Foxconn and where she wants to lead the WEDC. When it comes to Foxconn, have you had any conversations yet with the people there?
Yeah, I have met with the leadership now a couple times at Foxconn. There's new leaders there. There's new leaders in the state government. So there's a lot of transition happening right now. And so we're getting to know each other. We're having good communications. We're understanding what's happening on the ground. I've met with locals. It's just there's a lot of different moving parts. And so learning all about that in the last 60 days has actually been exciting.
Are you confident in that partnership going forward?
I'm confident that we're going to all make our best efforts to communicate and to understand what are the plans going forward for Foxconn, but also what are the needs of the taxpayers to assure that we're protected as we move forward with the agreement. But really, I'm confident that we're going to be able to work together really strongly.
And you mentioned the taxpayers and making sure that everyone can benefit from this. And I think that's really been a question with Foxconn. And there's been all these rumors swirling in terms of maybe there could be some renegotiation if Foxconn doesn't live up to what they promised. Is there any talk about that yet?
You know, what we're really talking about is learning about what's happening on the ground, what is happening with the project, and what they're thinking about going forward, and how that works with the state government. It's two really different conversations, right? You have a state government that's focused on the statutes and the contract and the taxpayers' needs, and then you have this amazing evolving business. And so having those two conversations and really finding the way together is exciting.
Now, what is it like to walk into something? I mean, it's a deal that you didn't do, and now you have to figure it out.
None of this is a deal I did. So all the projects around the state I'm learning about, and Foxconn is just one of those projects, and it's huge, and it's taken up a lot of the oxygen. But learning about all the projects has been really part of what I've been doing in the last 60 days.
So it's no secret that the WEDC has had some issues in the past. I think maybe most recently awarding tax credits to companies that didn't fulfill the number of jobs promised. That was in an audit, widely publicized. How do you, as being new in this role, get the trust back?
Well, I think the really important thing is to have a conversation among all the stakeholders for WEDC. So that's not only the people who work at the agency, but it's the governor's office, it's the legislature, it's the taxpayers. We need to have a whole conversation about what we want to do for economic development in Wisconsin. And then we can all feel that we've had a chance to participate in that conversation and we can trust more what's happening.
What's your vision for the agency?
My vision is to be able to have everyone in the state who has an idea, who has a business, feel like they can participate in economic development, that we have programs that will work for them, that they can have the state at the table when they're developing their ideas, and their ideas can be that much bigger because they can understand the resources that are available to them.
And at one point, Governor Evers wanted to disband the WEDC. So how has it been working with him and having that conversation about where you go from here?
I have really enjoyed working with him and the rest of the cabinet. He's a visionary about wanting to make sure that everybody in Wisconsin has access to programs, and that a Main Street in southwestern Wisconsin is just as vibrant as a Main Street in Milwaukee. And so really thinking about how do we have a whole state approach to economic development.
Coming up, that historic impeachment vote nears. We'll look at new polling in Wisconsin on impeachment, and I'll ask one of the state's top political reporters what those numbers mean. And later, delegate decisions. Matt Smith goes behind the scenes to see how Democrats are choosing their delegates.
Upfront, brought to you by WPS Health Insurance.